Let me get my fans shut off and all that good stuff so we can all hear. And I'm going to attempt. There we go. Alright, that should be recording from a couple of different angles. Actually, folks, give me 2 seconds. I'm going to go grab my dab stuff. Because as promised, we're going to start this thing off with a little bit of a smoke sesh. Let everybody get in here, get to watching and all that good stuff. Yeah, this is going to be a weekly thing for everybody that's just tuning in. I'm going to do my best to every Tuesday before I go play volleyball in my volleyball league to just talk with you guys, you know, talk about what's going on, go over kind of some grow methodology, some tips and tricks and how I do things. And I'm not going to kill myself with the big giant dab. So yeah, we're going to be talking about all kinds of good stuff. I'm going to be that's how we're going to do a big dab. And my wife is laughing at me from the other room. I'm guessing she's watching in the other room as well. Let's see here. Let's see if I... Oh yeah. That's actually not true because I have her phone recording me on the other thing. There we go. So yeah. You know, we're just going to be talking real informal, real casual status, talking about all different stuff that goes on with growing, specifically autos, mostly pertaining to my gear, and a lot of people have questions about, you know, how does certain strains do best in this environment and or that environment or with this certain set of nutrients or whatever the case may be, and so we'll try to tackle a lot of that kind of stuff, you know, what strains are going to work best for your specific setup, and how best to get the maximum genetic expression out of each one of these plants. So, with that being said, the main and most common problem that I encounter and have encountered with folks starting to grow autos or having issues growing autos is watering. For some reason, man, watering really, especially at the beginning stages, really affects how autoflowers start and how they grow. Remember, guys, that these autos are set pretty much on a timer, if you will, and so that means that you really need to do a lot of you know, a lot of work when it comes to getting them to do the things that they need to do prior to flower. That's going to be establishing a large and expansive root network. Okay, that's going to include your root crown, which is the very top part of the plant where it transitions from a meristem into the root network. That's going to be the tap root, which everybody is familiar with. That's the thing that pops out first. And the root tip, you know, the root tip is really one of the most amazing things in nature. It tells the plant and the root what to do, where to go, what direction to grow in, what nutrients to absorb, all that kind of stuff. So it's of paramount importance to get and establish a good watering program for your autos from the start. I'll let y'all know, I still struggle with it. I mean, I've spent thousands of dollars on automatic watering systems and, you know, all the different things and trying to, you know, really get something that's good for everybody. But each plant is going to be different, and realistically and truly, at the beginning of an autoflower's life cycle, the hand watering method is always going to be best and always what I recommend. Just because it's, you know, it's getting the roots in the root system what it needs. So I'll give you guys kind of an example. Okay, what I see most of the time is overwatering. Overwatering being that it saturates the root and it drowns it basically, because this is something that I have based almost my entire grow philosophy on. It's something that I learned from, this is back in Texas when growing, it's still not legal there, but it was really more illegal there. And there was a couple of grow shops that you could find, like in Austin, that catered towards cannabis cultivation, but you couldn't say anything about cannabis. That's a fact. You talked anything about any kind of bud or weird or anything like that, you get out. You're out of the shop. Can't do that here. And so I had shopped at this one local grow store for almost a year and a half, until I finally was comfortable enough with asking one of the guys that worked there, hey, what's, you might come checking my stuff out. And he came over to my house, and sure enough, he said something that it'll always stick with me, is that cannabis loves, almost above all else, air to their roots. And this is something that has just stuck with me forever. I mean, that's why we see the aero pots and the air pots and the air pruning and all of the things that are really designed to try to get the most air that you can to those roots. And so you do that with aeration tactics like perlite and lava stones or pebbles or whatever to fluff your soil up. Cocoa is is an amendment that people use all the time to aerate their soil. And so when you're talking about root growth and you're talking about watering, especially watering autos at the beginning, they're really searching for oxygen almost as much as they are water. They're looking for that oxygen molecule that's in the water, really, to be able to transfer and through the process of osmosis absorb nutrients. So if you think about it like this, and I'm going to do one more little dab, and then one more little dab, and then we can really get to talking. I'm almost there. I also ate a cookie, made a batch of cookies. My phenomenal, amazing, awesome wife made a batch of cookies, and it's starting to kick in. So I really just want to get this little dabarooski here to kick it all the way in. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just got to get all the way there. So there we go. There we go. Now we're talking. Now we're cooking with fire. So, if you think about your seedling, I always recommend a seedling starting kit similar to this, what I'm using here. You'll see that these are that's the next round of Dream Beans, by the way, guys. That's going to be in a Root Riot style cube. This is what I've used for 7 or 8 years. Root Riot or Rapid Rooters, either one of those two are great. So if you think about that, when you put you got your little sproutling, you got a little seedling that's just popped up, you may have a little bit of a taproot coming out of the bottom of the Root Riot cube. So you've got a small patch of port of dirt that you're going to put it in, soil, okay? It's got a little hole and you're going to put it in there. Beep. All right? So what's going to happen is, if you're using the Root Riot cubes, is remember that thing is basically like a sponge. So if you have too much water on the outside of the sponge, it will make it go outways. If you have too little, it'll suck it in. It'll suck it out. The dirt will suck out the moisture from your cube. And so what you want to do is you want to pre-wet that hole. This is just a method. I think Dan Jimmy is the one who maybe originally told me this. I can't remember who it was. Shout out to Dan and Jimmy. And quick shout out to, as always, you guys will always hear me shout out to autoflower.net, the originator, the place to go if you were looking for auto information. It was somebody on there that told me, kind of this method that they use for starting their autos is you dig your little hole, you got your pot of dirt, and you take some out so you can put your Jiffy pellet. I don't like Jiffy pellets, by the way. I think they are too constrictive and don't allow root growth. But anyway, so get your Root Riot cube, put it inside there, and that's where you're going to have your hole right there, okay? Your little hole. And so just take enough water to fill that hole, that little hole. What it's going to do is it's going to fill that hole. It's going to create a little bit of mud at the bottom. It's going to create mud. Water plus dirt equals mud. So you're going to have a little bit of mud down there at the bottom that's going to let that just little bit around that root plug, that Root Riot cube, that's what you want to gets fully saturated. I'm not really a fan of saturating the whole pot, just because I really think that there is a need for the aqueous zone and the humidity zone that's created between the contrast of dry soil and really wet soil. So you've got your really wet soil right here and your really dry soil right here, and what happens is a wicking action. So the dry soil is going to wick the soil and the moisture away from the really wet soil. And so right here in that zone is the perfect environment is created for your baby roots and your baby auto seedlings. Okay, it's going to be able, that's the zone that they're looking for. And so if you have a pot that's fully saturated, there's not that contrast between wet and dry, allowing that perfect little zone for your roots to thrive in. The root crown and the root tip is ultimately the very first point of the taproot that tells the plant where the moisture is its main function. And so what you're able to do is, if you can continue to create that small little zone. So you remember, you've got your fist-sized ball of super saturated soil, and right on the outside of that is going to be a small little zone between the wet and the dry. What you're going to do is you want that root tip and you want that taproot to be in that zone at all times until it gets out to the outer edges of your pot. Remember that roots and cannabis love air almost above all else, to their roots above anything else. That's what they love, and that's what they crave, and that's what ultimately, I'm sure lots of people have heard, big roots, big fruits, and it's not, coincidence that that's a thing. That I've always subscribed to the theory that if you can establish a great rhizosphere, which is, your root zone, be it in deep water culture or in an organic setup or a cocoa setup running lots of newts, salt-based newts, whatever it may be, that if you focus on the root zone and if you focus on trying to get that big, that guess what, folks? You're going to get big plants. One of the things that I always, my breeding practices that I focus on and have been even more in the last couple of years is the thickness of the meristem, the thickness of the main stem, the main stalk of your plant. Because what that is actually, that's just a transition into the root crown. If you've ever pulled up, or when you harvested, you see there's a transition zone. It goes from stalk, and then there's stalk up here, and then there's roots down here. Right here in that middle where it starts to transition and look like a stalk that is growing into roots. That's gonna be your root crown. And I've always really tried to focus on getting that as big as possible, because it's your pathway and your highway for the nutrients, okay? That's going to be the connective tissue to your xylem and your phylum that goes all throughout the plant. It's just like our veins in our system, in our bodies. And so when you've got a very healthy root network, it is going to result in larger plants, healthier plants, plants that are able to absorb nutrients at a faster rate and use them. So we've got your baby seedling when it's first starting. That's the thing that's kind of different with autos and photos that a lot of people, I don't think, take into account, is the fact that focusing on root growth at the stages of an autoflower grow is of paramount importance, and being able to water them correctly to allow that expansive root growth is going to be, that's the key, folks. I mean, guys, hundreds of times a week I see it and I get it in my DM saying, hey, why is my plant only this tall? 95% of the time it's a watering issue. It's either too much or too little, and almost in a considerable amount of the cases, it's almost always too much. This is generally how the process goes. You're a brand new grower, you get a grow, and you think, they need water to, and so you pour a bunch of water on them, and they end up this tall, and they flower, and you get frustrated. Then somebody tells you, hey, you overwatered them. Well, then the next time you go and you give them 2 drops of water, and 3 weeks later you got a plant that's dead. And you're wondering what the heck. And so finding that good balance and finding that rate of absorption, that's a hard one to say, rate of absorption of the water that you're putting onto the plant through the roots, into the plants, up through the stomata, and out into the atmosphere. So finding out that rate, that there's, if you think about it, if you've got a plant that's this big, that has, a root that's this long, and just try to put your mind's eye on how much water do you think that little thing can soak up at any one time, or throughout the course of 24 hours. It's not a lot, guys. It's way less than you think. And again, providing that amazing, Michael, yeah, finger the soil, yeah. That's there. We'll go over some methods and how to figure out what is wet soil, what is dry soil, coming up here in just a second. So if you've got, if you've got that perfect environment where you've got a really wet ball of soil, of medium, it's very wet, and then on the outside it's really dry. Okay, providing that small little zone, that's where you're going to see that taproot go to, and as that zone increases, so it'll start to dry out. So that little zone, it'll start to dry out. What's going to happen is that the feeder roots and the searcher roots are going to get to that aqueous zone. Then, as you water again, it's going to get bigger, and that taproot's going to keep following it. So what you're doing is you're and expanding that root zone ever so slightly through the use of water, doing it gradually and gradually and gradually, getting that aqueous zone and getting that ball of moisture continually expanding so that those roots can always be growing. If you're stunting your root growth, you're stunting your plant. And so you always want them to be searching for water until they get, 25, 30 days old. That's really when I start to see the tips of the taproot starting to get to the bottom of the fabric pot and start to poke out is around between 20 and 25 days. And so if you're focused on getting that root zone to grow in the first 25 days, it's going to do you the best service for your plants that you've probably ever had. So the way that I do it is, again, I get the little ball, take the soil out, fill it, make it full of mud. Okay, then I generally wait 3 days. Okay, it usually takes about 3 days, and the general rule of thumb is if you have a seedling that's coming up and it's got its cotyledons, you water in a circle around that area. Okay, so you'll have let's see if I can do that. Here's where you'll have the seedling coming out. You want to water in an area around in a circle, in a circle pattern, so that the roots again grow in a concentric circle. So then I wait about 3 days, or if you start to see, this is one of the things that was kind of scary at first, but it still rings true, is that baby seedlings that are underwatered will take water immediately, and if that is the issue, they'll stand right back up. If it's the opposite, where it's an overwatering situation, it'll be a dampening off. If y'all aren't familiar with what dampening off is, it's a fungal or bacterial infection that gets into the stem. If you've ever had a seedling that comes up and everything looks good, and then all of a sudden it just starts to get a little squishy stem. That's dampening off, and so it's the opposite of, and so there's not really, you can't take out all that moisture that it's got, and so it's a lot easier to put the moisture back in. Okay, it's a lot easier to put the moisture back in, and plants, guys, this is a ruderal species of plant, man. This is a very hardy. For those that don't know, ruderal and the ruderalis, ruderal means first to establish. First, I can't remember what the exact Latin is. It's the first to populate. Ruderal means first to populate. So in these Siberian areas, in these areas, latitudes of our planet, we've got very unique conditions up there. So the plants that were able to establish and continue to thrive there are some of the hardiest species that we have on the planet, including day-neutral cannabis, also known as autoflowers. So you guys that don't be afraid to underwater your plant, I guess, if that makes sense. Because if it is underwater and it starts to droop or you start to see it lean, you give it 3 drops of water, bam. I mean, within 20 or 30 minutes, that thing will be right back up. I've seen it. It still scares me to death to this day. But it's a much easier way to be able to give it a couple drops and have it stand back up than try to have one that's dampening off and going to die. So make sure that you just a little bit of water. One of the best measuring cups that I've ever had has been the top of a Pepto-Bismol bottle. That's what I use. It's 250 milliliters, I think, or 500 milliliter cap, and that's what I use to water my seedlings at the beginning. Especially when I first started working with autos, just because I had such trouble with stunted plants and not really getting my head around the fact that watering plays such an important key into growing autos, and much more so than photos, and to the degree that they only have a set amount of time before they're going to start that biological clock kicks in. we're pretty sure that the main flowering trigger for autoflowers at this point is root pressure and root resistance. It's an evolutionary adaptation to hitting the permafrost up there in the northernmost portions of our planet. And there is also a time factor. Like, if I've seen plants that I know, and I've dug into the soil, that taproot was nowhere near the bottom of the pot or anywhere near it. So there is kind of a dead set time factor that they will start to flower. So if your root system isn't allowed to get as big as it possibly can in those first 3 to 4 weeks, then your plant's probably going to not be the best that it can be and the biggest that it can be. So that's kind of what the importance of watering that I don't think enough people take into account is the fact that it's really, really different with photos than it is for autos, just for that limited time factor. So a couple of ways to be able to tell at the beginning if your plant is underwatered or overwatered is just by being able to see what kind of growth it's doing. You should be able to tell from one day to the next with an autoflower. Each day and every day, you should be able to see some sort of noticeable growth. Now, it may not be 2 feet a day or whatever, but if y'all are anything like me, I am a freaking, I don't like to say it, but I'm a crackhead when it comes to looking at my plants. I sit out there and I watch my plants. I have got hundreds of thousands of hours of sitting there doing this. This is what my plants see. You know what I mean? And so I'm able to notice imperceptible to most what I considerable noticeable growth may not be noticeable growth to other people, but I sure notice it. And so each day there should be some little sort, you should be able to see, oh, okay, now I can start to see the next internode coming out, and I can start to see a little piece of green that wasn't there yesterday. All of those types of things. You should see noticeable growth from your autoflowers every single day. Okay, be it the size of the leaves, be it another internode spacing that's got another brand new piece of foliage that's coming out of a new internode. Whatever it may be, there's something on there that you should be able to tell day by day. And if not, then you can start to assess what is causing that. These plants want to grow. I've tested it for 10 years almost, is that I've given them and I've thrown things at them that they just want to grow. Because of their limited time and their limited growing season in nature, they are designed to go as fast and as hard as they possibly can in order to preserve the generation and evolution. So studying your plants is definitely good. Making sure that the watering of those autos is not overdone at first is definitely a key. Making sure that you are keeping an eye on your plants in those first 7 to 10 days, that you really want to make sure you see noticeable growth each day, and that your watering techniques should go like this, that you should about every 3 days for the first 10 days. Okay, so you should water them 3 times in the first 10 days or so. There's no one set, hey, water them 250 milliliters day 1, 350 milliliters day 3. It's not like that. And the reason, because there is so many different environmental factors that go into how the plant uses that moisture, and how is it a dry environment? Is there a lot of wind? Is there a lot of convection happening? Is there a lot of moisture evacuation? Is it hot? There's all kinds of things that go into how fast that moisture will come out of that pot. And so it's really going to be up to you to understand what your environment is and how fast that water will actually get absorbed. So I always suggest less is more. With your brand new seedling, try the mud hole method, which for those of you that have showed up, if you take your pot of soil and you remove some of that soil in order to put your rapid rooter cube in there, just take that hole and fill that hole with water. It's going to fill up at the bottom. It's going to create a little bit of mud. Okay, that's going to create a really good, nice, moist environment that will allow your seeds to have both water and oxygen. So, and keep in mind, Stephanie, she says she vegs from 6 to 8 weeks. Keep in mind, these are all autoflowers, and everything that's going to be out of dream beans is going to be autoflowers. And so there are subtle differences between growing photoperiods and growing autos. Mainly, in the biggest difference that I see is going to be watering. And how you have limited time to be able to do root work, as I say, than you do with photoperiods. So just getting a little Pepto-Bismol, NyQuil bottle cap, just a small little container, little thing like that. And use that for the first week or two to water your autos, okay? Just take one of those, fill it up, pour it in a circle around the seedling, and that should give you plenty of moisture for a couple of days. The plant doesn't use very much at that stage. It's it's a real small, little tiny thing, and so it's not it's just a small, little tiny thing that doesn't use a whole lot of water. So that's going to be the main, the main thing. You guys know you can always reach out to me via DM. Not sure, David. I'll reach out to me, David Woodard. Shoot me a DM. Yes, Brent, Bean Hunter. Using a kid's cough syrup syringe. Yes, that's definitely a very good thing. Not insulin syringe, guys. These are going to be the one with no needle on the tip. It's going to be for sucking up like the pink liquid antibiotics and stuff like that. Really, really good way. It's a real good way to get directional, and you can actually squirt it in a real good pattern. It's A-OK in the USA there with the kid's syringe, being able to do it. It's just, I guess the main point of this lesson is less is more when it comes to watering your autos. Don't need to saturate the whole pot. The rule of thumb is that when the outermost leaves reach the edge of the pot, so you got your seedling comes up and you got leaves that come out. When those leaves get to the edge of the pot, that's generally speaking when you can saturate the whole pot. That's going to be when you feel you can you can do it a couple of ways. You can weigh the pot and see what it weighs wet, fully saturated with plant in there. You can just lift it up and kind of gauge it by feel. You can get a soil moisture meter. I used a soil moisture meter for a long, long time. They're real good. Accurate 8 is a good brand to use. Now all of them have soil moisture and pH meters. No Blue Lab's got one. There's a couple of that are pretty dang cool. Using like Michael had suggested, the finger test. Take one finger, stick it in the soil. You stick it up to your second knuckle, and if it's like the cake batter test, if it comes out clean and it's dry and there's nothing sticks to your finger, water it. If it comes out and it's still got a little brownie batter on your finger, it's still good and moist. So that's 1 gallon equals 8 pounds. That's always yes for everybody that knows. Water weighs 8 pounds a gallon, and so yeah, that's kind of where that's where we're at with some. Let me see if I can't scroll back through here. Of course, y'all have got 7,816 different requests. I tell you what, we'll just start. If anybody have any questions about watering your autoflowers, watering them and getting them to a point where they're at least you want your autos to be this big or bigger, in my opinion, whenever they go into flower. So Bean Hunter, Big B, Brent, Random, my dude. So on a seed tray, what you use for light, I can show you. This is just this is my seed room. So this is my propagation station, and then I just have the HLG. I have the 650R that's up there, and so it's just hung kind of high, and the shop lights. Oh yeah, and then I got the shop light too. I just happen to have the HLG in here. A lot of times I'll just use that shop light that's up there, but it's cold right now, and so I'm using the HLG for a little extra heat. And so yeah, that's what I got for lights. When do I start bottom feeding? It's interesting, Eric. It's funny you mentioned that. I'm actually like this run, the last run I started trying to go back to bottom watering, which is, for those that don't know, it's getting a reservoir, like a little baby pool or something, putting your plant in there and watering it from the bottom versus the top using wicking action through the soil. So I'm actually going back to that just for ease of watering, and I think I get better root development out of the bottom when they stay saturated like that. And I have a very specific reason for doing that. The up potting that that I've been working with in transplanting a 2 gallon into a 5 gallon without taking it out of the pot. I need some of those longer roots. So I'm going back to bottom watering, and I do that, start bottom watering at the same time as you would saturating the whole pot. So saturating the whole pot doesn't mean from top or bottom. It's just once those leaves reach the outside edge of your pot, you can go ahead and saturate the whole pot however you'd like to. Okay, about how many milliliters do you give a new seedling with each watering? I usually give about 100. I'd say, and I haven't really looked at anyone at any given time. 200, 100, 200. Just that. That much water. It's if it's in a syringe or if it's in a wider cup. Just not a whole lot. Just about a capful. A couple 100 milliliters at most. And let's see here. Don't forget running straight cocoa. Your water habits are going to be a little different. Yes, absolutely. This is going to be strictly for traditional soil-based watering applications. With cocoa, that's totally different. You got dry back periods and full saturation points, and it's a lot more involved. And so we could go over that in future. Talk about it Tuesdays. Let's see here. How long after germination should you introduce newts? That's a dang good question, Jennifer McCarthy, and I'm glad you asked. Guys, everything that these plants need is they have everything that they need for 10 to 14 days worth of growth out of the seed. They don't need anything. They don't want anything. They don't like anything. That's why I've used for a long time with the starter hole method, which is you have a pot that has nutrient-rich soil all in it, and you remove a certain amount and put just base soil in there, just with no nutrients, just a base soil like a Roots Organic or a 707, Roots Organic Original 7. I've used for a long time BioStart, BioGreen. Those are going to be your the ones that you replace back in that starter hole. What that does, that gives you again a little bit of time for your root network to establish, and for it to be able to actually use the newts. So your plant will tell you when you need it after it's gotten a couple of nodes, and if you start to see any kind of yellowing or anything like that, you'll know. And again, this is going to be the same thing with the water. A new seedling at the beginning, it'll tell you if it needs nutrients by showing. Most likely the first thing you'll see is it start to pale up a little. Then you can start to add nutrients, add anything with nitrogen in it at the appropriate rates, and you'll see it green back up immediately within 2 or 3 days, and you'll see it take off. So that's general rule of thumb is 10 days to 14 days. Can you still top dress with a bottom watering? Again, y'all are coming up with some really good questions. Not really. Not really. Bottom watering with top dressing with a bottom watering doesn't really work. That's one of the kind of engineering issues that I've had the last run. Was I used dry amendments, and so how to get those dry amendments into some situation where I'm bottom watering. So one way to do it is to drill a hole in your soil. That's what I've done the last couple of times. Just get something, just a stake, a dowel, a rod, something, and stick it down to the bottom where you know that you've got roots down there, and kind of wiggle it around and put your dry amendments in that way. Make sure that they're at the bottom, and do it with a couple of different holes around the pot. So essentially you're going to be bottom dressing versus top dressing in that situation. Michael Wild Schultz, he loves his auto pots. They are great. Yeah, Michael, I've been tempted a lot of times to make the leap over to auto pots, but the fact that I run 80 to 100 plants at a time, I'm still scared of that many moving parts, if you will. Let's see here. Would you just water one time from the top when you top dress, but continue watering? No, because you need that. You need to carry those dry amendments and the top dressing down into the bottom. So it's top dressing. I mean, yes, it can work if your soil is going to continuously be damp, and if you've got a way to keep the top part of the soil still pretty good and moist, then yes, it will work. I would just suggest digging down a little bit, so you know that as long as there's moisture, then those dry amendments are going to do their job. Dustin, been drowning my babies. Most people do. It's one of the most common learning curves that we see. How about seed direct to a forever pot? Yeah, man, seeds into their forever homes for the most part. That's going to be the way to do it. Just because we are still not sure exactly what the flowering triggers and mechanisms are on autoflowers for 100% certainty. So yeah, it's always best to sow them in their forever home. Put them all the way into their forever home, and make sure that you water them correctly. Soil, sohum. Would sohum burn an auto? That's a loaded question, Marley. But not really. It depends on what strain it is. If it's sensitive to newts, it can, but it shouldn't. I would still always recommend using a starter hole, even with sohum. If I can, I ran it twice. First time I did it, second time burned it bad and had to pull it. Yeah, see, that's the thing, is consistency in your soils. That's why you'll always hear about talk about Bio 365. That's one of the best things about their soil, is they're all consistent. The same bag that I got a year and a half ago is the same bags that I'm getting today, and they perform exactly the same. So, is the auto light schedule the same as photoperiod plants? Mildred, no. The autoflower light schedule is something that we will definitely go over, in the future on future Talk About It Tuesdays, because it is definitely an area of high debate in the auto world and the cannabis world. For the generic answer is just, you want to give an autoflower 18 hours of light or more. Anything under that, you'll start to get into diminishing returns as far as yields and stuff. Let's see. How do you suggest I use mycorrhizal fungi? Yes, you will hear me talk about mycorrhizal fungi. And there's only one product out there that I will ever endorse, just due to the fact that it works so good. I just ordered $150 worth of it, and that's Dtnomyco. Dtnomyco has been researched to show that it's the hyphae. The hyphae is the mycelial network. It's the little fibers that will actually connect to a root. There is 99% of the products out there that claim they're mycorrhizal are not tested on cannabis, and they actually don't even work. Meaning that those hyphae don't connect to the roots. They only connect to the roots of hardwood trees. Dtnomyco figured this out, and they found the one strain of mycelium, that actually mycorrhizal fungi that actually will attach to a cannabis root. And they have it in 10 times the amount of any other stuff out on the market. For example, Great White has 11 propagules per gram of this specific strain of mycelium, and Dtnomyco has 900 propagules per gram. So, Dtnomyco, it's the best stuff out there. Get it, put it in your soil before you put your plants in there, and they will thank you for it throughout. Let's see here. Okay, what's up with the guy that's 71 and has the skunk number 2? I've reached out to him. We've been in contact. Steve Vance. He seems to be a real legit dude, and I am working in right now. That's what I was doing while I was almost late to the live. Is because that was a pretty cool piece of information. My farm manager, shout out to my boy River. He went down to Mexico, and he was dead set on finding some original Chamula skunk. He found it in the jungles, in the deep, deep Mexican forests, and the hillsides and the mountaintops down near Guatemala, near Chiapas and San Cristobal. And so he came back, he got about 10 seeds, he was able to find it, locate it, find the good stuff, find the skunky funky. And then I had this dude pop up in the Bean Collectors Anonymous. Shout out to Bean Collectors Anonymous, love you guys. Whatchamacallit. So he popped up on Bean Collectors Anonymous and said that he's been growing the same super skunk number 2 or skunk number 2 that he got from Amsterdam. I'm very interested in that'll probably be my first photo period project in over 15 years. So that's cool. Looking up for that. And real question, how's that cookie? It's starting to kick in. Have you ever dealt with bugs in the soil, fungus gnats? I just shared a meme in Multiverse group. It's the little kid playing the guitar, and he's going, and it's a little song about fungus gnats. Fungus gnats, I really have a benefit. The fact of the place where I grow is up here in Colorado at almost 9,000 feet, and so a lot of the pest problems that lots of other folks deal with, I don't, just because it gets so cold here. And the only really soil-borne pests that I've ever dealt with is fungus gnats. And that's, of course, from improperly stored soil at the hydro stores or at the bulk facility where they package it. The fact that they don't pre-pack it with nematodes like Bio365 does. This was all prior to finding the Bio365 soils. And so I don't remember what the hell I was talking about. It happens. To answer your question, Brent, that cookie is kicking in. That's kind of what we're going to be doing here on Talk About It Tuesdays, guys. It's going to be me. Y'all get to look at my ugly mug for 30 minutes or an hour. We'll talk about pertinent growing information, stuff that's on your minds, how you guys are doing, how you're doing with Dream Beans or any other stuff. A live is an opportunity that generally for the Dream Beans Support Center posts, we want them to all be Dream Beans related. In the lives, you guys can ask whatever you want. I'm here. I know I'm available. My time is dedicated, so I can answer any questions that you guys have just about growing in general, be it Dream Beans or whatever. Let's see here. And so I guess it's been about 40 minutes or so we're gonna take it to the end. If nobody else has any questions, I will let y'all know that at each one of these lives I'm gonna be having different stuff, just doing different little things. Gonna be doing different little flash sales and stuff that'll be freebies or a merch item or anything like that. And for this one, we're gonna kick it off pretty strong. I'm gonna do a flash sale. That's going to be 40% off everything on the Dream Beans site for the next hour. As soon as I get done with this live, you'll have a code that you can use, and I will post the code in the group and let you guys know what the code to use is. It'll be live for the next hour. You guys, anything on the site will be 40% off. I've got all of the Femline Fems that are available, and I've got all of the regs that are still available. Full lineups available, guys. Go ahead and get you your 40% off. I will go ahead and make a post in the group. It'll let you know what the code is to be able to get your 40% discount. Like I said, that'll go live for the next hour. And I may throw in some mystery freebies that you'll know what they are. I'll have them labeled, but I just haven't decided which ones they are yet. Probably going to be some blueberry. I'm calling it Glueberry. It's a glue-leaning pheno of blueberry breath that I pollinated with some purple rock berry. So I'll probably do that. So the Glueberries freebies, 40% off. Guys, go to dreambeans.net and secure those and get them while they last. Like I said, that sale will go live for an hour. If you happen to miss out on it, all strains are still available. All the feminized strains are still available on multiversebeans.com. Make sure you guys, if you don't get in on the sale, if you for whatever reason it's prohibitive and you can't get in on it, go to multiversebeans.com, grab your packs, get them there, get them while they're hot, get them while they last. And with that, I will get on. I'll make the post to let you guys know what the code is. And actually, let's see, I bet you I could probably do this a couple different ways because I had it queued up on the computer, I think. Let's see. Oh, of course, the computer's. Let's see, that's cool. Let's see here if I had it. What the code is, so you guys that are watching now, y'all can see it as well. There we go. Now let's see here. There we go. There's the code. It's going to get you 40% off of everything in your cart. Talk to S-Day 40. Talk Tuesday 40. That's going to give you guys your... that's going to give you guys a 40% discount on everything that's in your cart. And this will be live for the next hour. So you guys go ahead and see what packs you want. Hop in on it. You guys will get 40% off anything in your cart. And that's how we'll do it. So you guys hop on there. Make sure that and guys, we're still working with trying to get our credit card processing back up and running. We had some serious issues with Square, but we are working We are working now to get those rectified. So we will be offering more payment options. I did set up the Bitcoin. If you guys, anybody out there, crypto folks, you can pay in Bitcoin. And with that being said, you guys go grab some packs. It'll be live for the next hour. And we look to see you out there in the multiverse and out there in the Dream Bean Support Center. Later, guys.